Going beyond the headlines to the deeper issues. 96.3 WHUR and HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Inside segment where your questions and comments matter at 202-319-7810. Join the conversation.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Inside segment. I'm Harold Fisher. Considering how congested D.C. metro traffic has become, it's no surprise that we all get a little angry on the roads. I know I do. But that's a far cry from the growing incidents of road rage we've seen lately, some of them turning violent. But quick tempers and extreme anger don't just happen behind the wheel of a car. We've seen in our homes, we've seen it on the job, and even in social settings. So why does this happen, and what can people do to manage extreme anger? Well, joining me to talk about this are Dr. Nicole Cutts. She's a licensed clinical psychologist, and John Townsend, manager of public and government affairs for AAA Mid-Atlantic. Lines are open. Give us a call at 202-319-7810. 202-319-7810 if you have experienced an extreme form of road rage or if you are struggling to manage angry outbursts. John and Dr. Cutts, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here, Harold.
Good to be here. Good evening.
John, let me first kind of get a quick recap of what has happened recently, starting with the 3rd Street tunnel shooting. I must say that, which happened on Tuesday of this week, just really, really shocking.
It is, and frightening, too. Here's the situation. It could have happened to anyone.
Can it?
It can, because the driver tapped someone's bumper. The woman who's driving the other car gets out and curses him out. The man in the passenger side of the car gets out and shoots the driver of the other car. Now, there's nothing that driver could have done to de-escalate or defuse that situation, because you had a madman, and that's probably giving him an excuse. But he shot the person. He wasn't driving. No one was hurt, as far as we can determine. And it happens all too often. Here's what we've seen in the last 8 months in this area.
And we should say that the man who was shot is still in the hospital. He is recovering, serious condition from
serious condition.
Yeah.
And chances are his life will be changed forever.
Absolutely.
Forever. But in January, on 295 in the District of Columbia, a woman was confronted by a person who lapsed into road rage and shot her 3 times. We had a situation in Northern Virginia where we had a road rage incident involving a gun. And then on St. Patrick's Day, someone who should have known better, someone who should have been in control of his faculties, a Maryland State Trooper, he's off duty, and he pulls his gun on someone. So it's happening all too often. And even with taxi drivers and Uber drivers, one Uber driver who pulls someone, jumps out of her car with a butcher knife to threaten the driver of another car. And then that famous case last year in the district on New York Avenue by the Arboretum, where a woman sideswipes a Greyhound bus, jumps out of her car with a car jack and starts breaking up windows in the bus.
Mm-hmm. Now we should also say, from what I remember,
right,
that woman did have some mental health issues, obviously, but it seems that, generally speaking, you could probably argue, Dr. Cutts, that anyone who has extreme anger like that may have some mental health concerns, but nothing that may be considered a chronic or acute, I should say, situation. So I'm still just kind of focusing on what is happening on the roads, John. Are we, in driver education, are they not teaching people to be calm, cool, and collected? I seem to remember something about that years ago.
That's one of the driving skills, is to drive defensively and maintain control of your emotions. But think about this, Harold. You enumerated the reasons. They're not excuses, but they're reasons. And one of them is when you are in an urban area with congested roads, and each one of us is losing 155 hours a year being stuck in gridlock. So what do? We take it out on others. And then we, as the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, looked at 10,000 road rage cases over a 7-year period. And those cases resulted in 218 murders. That's what you have to call them. Where 218 people were murdered on the highway by other drivers, and 12,000, almost 13,000 were injured by other drivers. And this is happening all too often, and it's the greatest fear that drivers have. You used to ask drivers, what do you fear the most? People used to say 20 years ago, the drunk driver.
Mm-hmm.
About a dozen years ago, people said they feared the driver who was under the influence of drugs, or someone who ran the red light, or high speeders. But now, the sum of our fears is the other driver who could easily blow his stack, go out of control, and injure us because he's driving a 3,000-pound weapon.
Dr. Cutts, let's start with road rage. How would you define it clinically, and what is happening with an individual who has so-called road rage?
Well, it's not we don't have a clinical term or definition for it, but what is happening is basically your fight or flight syndrome, your fight or flight mechanism is being activated because you're in a stressful situation. And when people, our amygdala is the part of our brains that can be thought of as the fear center of our brain, gets prigged, we have typically, like fight or flight. So you're in a car and you're protected. And so a lot of times people become angry and aggressive. And it's just a natural inborn reaction in us when other people are aggressive with us that we might, have that fight or flight syndrome get activated. But a part of it is also the way we think. Mr. Townsend mentioned how much time we waste or how much time is lost in traffic, and that's part of what makes us so impatient, is that we feel like we're trying to get somewhere. Everybody's in a rush to get somewhere. And there's definitely, it's a pressure, especially around here. So I think that we need to change our thinking somewhat about that time not being wasted time and that I'm being held back, but that is just a part of living in an urban area, living with congestion. But what happens is essentially people get stressed, their cortisol levels go up, adrenaline goes up, and that prigs that response of anger unless you do something to counter it.
202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. We are talking about road rage and other anger issues. How is it that so many people go from 0 to 100 so fast? How is it that they pop off, go left, kirk out? And how can you control that? 202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. Keith, calling from Hyattsville. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Hi, Harold. Thank you all for taking my call.
Sure.
Not all, not blaming all, but some of these younger drivers, millennials, they are just hectic on this road. They ride up on you. They hop in front of you. They take over your lane, and they ain't going nowhere. One guy, I saw him up and down, just zooming out of a lane, and guess where he was going? To the gas station. Between Suitland Parkway and BW Parkway, those young drivers are just treacherous. They have no sense of watching out for other drivers. It's about them. And I honestly feel, and I may be wrong, I honestly feel they need to change the driving age up to 30, because these young
up to 30?
Yeah,
because I guess most of the folks under 30 are taking Uber anyway, right, Keith? Yeah, so there's probably a lot of that. Keith, thank you so much. What do you think about that, John? Do you have any numbers or even any general information about who may be more responsible for road rage-related incidents?
Males and millennials.
Men and millennials. Double M&M.
That's right. Always. But here's the other thing. It is not only that you can become a victim of road rage, you can lapse into it. And there are things that you can do that can trigger it in others, such as one thing that annoys people is tailgating. See, everybody is so boorish and everybody is so selfish. And some of the things we do can trigger aggressiveness in other drivers, such as tailgating. And that really irritates people, or cutting someone off. If you are a rude and inconsiderate driver, you may be putting yourself in harm's way in more ways than one by not only endangering yourself, but triggering this rage in other drivers. So you not only have to avoid triggering it in other drivers, you have to avoid lapsing in a road rage yourself. And those are the two things that you have to negotiate when you're driving in all this heavy traffic.
I have a friend of mine who will remain nameless, but I no longer call her when I do have a chance. If I call her and I say, what are you doing? And she'll say, I'm driving to work. I'll call her back because in the middle of, haven't spoken to you in a while. What's happening? Oh, well, I'm having this, I just got promoted at work, and come on, man, come on, and are you okay? Yeah, this guy just kind of, so you were telling me about the promotion? Yeah, I'm going to be making, oh, come on, what are you doing? And I'm like, look, I'll call you later.
Yes.
Because she really has extreme road rage. And I think beyond what happens on the road, Dr. Cutts, there are obviously other forms of rage and anger, as I mentioned earlier, social settings, at home, on the job. Is this an issue that is specific to a person, or is it specific to a situation? Are some situations more likely to make people more angry than others?
It's a combination of the person and the situation, but we can all benefit from learning how to take a breath, how to step back. One of the tools that I use in my coaching and therapy practice is somatic coaching, and it has to do with really putting some focus on your body to increase your emotional intelligence. So really paying attention to what goes on in your body. So let's say when that stress reaction starts, getting ahead of it in terms of managing it. So being aware of when you're you're at the low end of the scale of ultimately kirking out, being aware of it and learning to manage it, and also to look at what is your thinking that contributes to stress. So I think we could all benefit from taking a step back and looking at our reactions to stressors. And we could all benefit, our health would benefit. And also, as Mr. Townsend was mentioning, it's dangerous for our lives when we exhibit this kind of aggression, that people need to take a step back. But certainly there are some people who are more prone to anger, but I think we could all benefit from observing, taking a step back, breathing, becoming more mindful in a situation, and that would lessen our stress and our aggressive responses.
There are things we do behind the wheel, Harold, that we wouldn't do at home. We wouldn't curse another person out. We wouldn't.
Well, I don't know. There are some people.
Some of us do.
Yeah, some of us do.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
Okay. But I'm saying,
not you.
Okay, let's say in your office, you wouldn't curse a coworker out. Most companies don't tolerate that anymore.
Right.
You wouldn't throw an obscene gesture. And by the way, those are the things that trigger road rage. Obscene gestures, quicker than anything else. The other person will respond to that. So what we need on our roadways today is more courtesy and more caution. If you can live between those two poles, courtesy and caution, you'll never become involved in a road rage incident. And chances are you won't trigger one because you're not hitting what she would call the triggering points, the things that stimulate road rage in other drivers. But here's how, you asked the question, here's how pervasive it is. We did a poll 4 years ago. We do one every year called the AAA Foundation Traffic Safety Culture, where people self-report what they do. almost 80% of all drivers in the United States said they were involved in some kind of aggressive driving behavior, some type of road rage behavior, and some type of significant anger behind the wheel at least once in the last year. 80%, 8 out of 10.
202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. We are talking about road rage and other anger issues tonight. If you have a problem with road rage, or if you have anger issues, problems managing your anger, yelling, screaming, cursing, kicking, the whole bit, give us a call. We do have help here tonight. Again, 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. We're going to take a break in a bit, but we're going to talk to Joan calling from Silver Spring in just a bit. Also, we're going to talk to Lamont calling from Germantown. Lines are still open, so give us a call, 202-319-7810. We, of course, will be taking your phone calls even after 7:30. So don't hang up. You will be able to hear the program. The Daily Drum will continue on Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. Jeff Brown is next with the original Quiet Storm on WHUR. This conversation continues on Sirius XM Channel 141 in just a few seconds.
The Howard University Radio Network is WHUR 96.3 FM, WHUR World 96.3 HD2, student-run WHBC HD3, GlassHouseRadio.com, SiriusXM Channel 142, HBCU, and SiriusXM Channel 141, HUR Voices, Washington.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. Tonight we're talking about road rage and other anger issues. My guests are Dr. Nicole Cutts, licensed clinical psychologist, and John Townsend, manager of public and government affairs for AAA Mid-Atlantic. Lines are open. Give us a call at 202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. If you're having difficulty getting through, please keep trying. I promise we will take your phone calls. Joan, calling from Silver Spring. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
I was just thinking about how you just described the person who, in the normal day-to-day operations, don't really curse anybody out. Mm-hmm. But when I get behind the wheel and there's a driver that won't let me merge, or if there's a driver that purposely cuts me off, I curse like a sailor. If I'm on the phone with somebody, they have to tell me, calm down, and I almost forget that I'm on the phone with somebody. So
like your pastor, for example. Don't be on the phone with your pastor when you're driving.
I've been on the phone with my father, and he has still not let me forget that.
So why do you suppose it is if you wouldn't do it any other time?
Maybe it's the safety of being behind my vehicle, because I certainly would never get out of my car to confront somebody, nor would I want somebody to confront me. But it's my level of patience. If I have to leave work every day, have to get across 4 lanes of traffic, one-way traffic, to make a right turn, and no one is letting me in, it frustrates me.
Yeah.
What should she do?
Well, I think that it's good that she doesn't get out of her vehicle. I think that she needs to reframe. Joan, you need to reframe the way you look at your daily commute, because it's not changing. So the only thing that's going to be able to change is you and your approach to it. It's possible that you might be taking it personally, that people aren't letting you merge. You might want to pull out Don Miguel Ruiz's 4 agreements and look at don't take anything personally. And just focus on, being the best driver that you can be. If you have a problem getting stressed out in the car, you might want to also have, I don't know what you listen to in the car, but you might want to use your time listening to books on tape or something relaxing, guided meditation, not the kind that would make you go to sleep, of course, but one, using that time productively and also to help you remain calm, because, that level of aggression just really isn't good for us.
Yeah. Joan, hang in there and drive carefully, please. 202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. Lamont, calling from Germantown. Lamont, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Great show as usual. I have
you.
a twist on this anger issue. I am a veteran, and my license plate says disabled veteran. I don't have a blue placard. So here's what happens to me. I'm going in to try to get a handicap spot. there's some maniac that drives speeding on me and wondering why am I going towards a handicapped spot. Well, veterans, we don't have to have a blue placard that says handicap. We have a license plate that says either DV as in disabled veteran with the handicap logo, or we have it spelled out disabled veteran. I even had Montgomery County Police undercover plain clothes come to Walmart saying, what do you park there for? And I had DV, so I ended up going to motor vehicle to get a license plate that actually has the wording disabled vet. And because people visually, they always think you should look at the blue placard. Well, veterans who are injured and, service-connected injuries, we don't have to have a blue placard. So that's the road race I've actually been associated with.
People don't realize that you can have designated parking spaces and the like.
But why should it matter? Here's the thing, and I think this is what he's getting at. Why would someone be angry at him if he's parking in a handicapped parking space if you're not handicapped? See, it is a sense of entitlement. That's what the problem is, that not only do we view our vehicles as our castle and our shield, but that the roads belong to us. It is this utmost selfishness on the part of drivers, that I'm entitled to this, and you can't cut me off, or you should let me merge, and if you don't, at least almost 4% of us in the last year got out of their cars to confront another driver. 5% of us rammed another driver because we didn't like what they were doing.
But here's the and Gerald, thank you. I'm sorry, Lamont. Thank you so much for your service and certainly be careful on the roads. Because here's the other thing. Because, we started this conversation about road rage, and some of these incidents happen while vehicles are moving. Of course, we all remember the loud music murder from years ago. While that involved young black men in a car and a white male who was armed with a gun at a convenience store. This wasn't about moving vehicles. This was about loud music. There are other incidents that have nothing whatsoever to do with cars, Dr. Cutts. You remember, going to a club and somebody steps on your shoes, and at that point it is done. Why is it that some people just pop off so quickly while others take things in stride? Is dealing with anger issues a learned thing?
Again, it's a combination of nature and nurture. So, we're born with our particular temperaments, and a part of that includes things like our level of ability to deal with frustration. So some of it is learned and some of it is inborn, but wherever it comes from, it's incumbent on all of us to check ourselves, and if we are acting aggressively and, what is going on. Part of what goes on, what makes people fight, whether it's in the club or on the road, is pride and ego. And those things can get you killed. I have to win. People chase people down on the road. Oh, they did this to me. Oh, this person stepped on my shoe, therefore I have to shoot them, or I have to hit them. It's I think that we need to exercise more compassion with ourselves and with people around us. I think Lamont, who called in, the disabled veteran, it's a very good example of, you don't know what's going on with that person in that car. If we could give people a second, and as Mr. Townsend mentioned, not feel so entitled, to give people, to have some compassion and wait a moment. People make these judgments. You did this on purpose. You shouldn't have been doing this. And then trying to police other people. Like you said, Mr. Townsend, why am I going to get upset if you're driving into a handicapped parking space?
And I can't park there.
And is there... And I suspect that both of you can talk about this. It seems to me that there is a loss of civility in the world, because often what could end literally amicably in seconds, if you bump somebody and they spill their drink, if you are out in a social setting, and excuse me, and offer to get them another drink, or to pay a cleaning bill for someone's suit, which would cost less than $10. That people have done that to me. I have done that, and usually when I'm fine, I'm okay. You just kind of let it go. But it seems to me that people are less likely to let slights go.
Anger begets anger, and aggression begets aggression, and that's a part of our wiring, our neurobiological wiring. Is that we see an aggressive behavior, and it makes us get aggressive, but we're not animals. We're humans, and we have the ability to think, and we have the ability to override that automatic fight or flight syndrome. So even though that might be your first reaction, you have to practice not giving into that. And also realize that when you display aggression, you're most likely to get that back from somebody else, like we've seen that happens on the road.
And one angry driver, if he is confronted by a driver who's not going to engage him, the situation will not escalate. So we can't escalate situations. We have to learn how to diffuse situations. And if someone makes an obscene gesture, as much as it makes us angry, to say,
just let it go.
Let it go.
202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. Ayana calling from Laurel. Thanks for calling, Ayana. What's on your phone? What's on your mind?
Hi. I just wanted to agree and contribute that when people are adding to the situation, when they're adding to the velocity of the anger, I just feel like they're not acknowledging what they're doing themselves. They're not aware of what they're contributing to the situation. And a lot of that just comes with entitlement, like you said, and territorialism, I'm battling. I don't know what it is, but people are just way too aggressive.
Interesting. Ayana, thank you so much for that. 202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. Gerald calling from D.C. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Hey, Harold, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
You think road rage is something. Wait till you go to Minnesota Avenue between Benning Road and Blaine Street where they have gas rage each and every day.
Gas rage? What is gas rage?
Well, first of all, these are the two cheapest gas stations in D.C. You can get gas for $2.47 a gallon.
Ooh.
And at the Shell, you can get it for $2.49. And they've always had the cheapest for the last maybe 5 years. People come in, bust through it, try to bust through the line, or somebody is holding a spot for one of their friends to get around to drive in there. Next thing you know, it's fights breaking out. And the thing about it is, it surprised me one day, Sam Ford from Channel 7 was interviewing people at the gas station doing a story, and he came over to me and he said, is road rage increasing or decreasing? I said, road rage is increasing and so is gas rage. He said, what do you mean by that? I said, look, turn your cameras over there. There's a fight that's about to break out with young ladies. Oh, they get the rumbling over there. Oh, yeah, it's a sideshow. You can, all the vendors are there. Well, I call them the vendors, the ones that go in the store, come back with 10 bottles of Tide and want to sell it to you for $5.
My gracious.
You can shop there the whole day, okay? But it's getting real crazy. On occasion, there have been some altercations involving firearms because it's yellow taped over there quite often. But as a driver, I see it every day, whether it's here, whether it's in Virginia, whether it's in Maryland. I get less road rage in Baltimore. And that's something you can tell the president, when you get a chance.
I'm sure he's
Gerald,
listening in.
Yeah, be careful at that gas station. Thank you so much for your call. One of the things that just occurred to me, John, it seems to me that because cars have become so technologically advanced and because of smartphones and texting, despite what the laws say, there are so many more distractions. Years ago, when we didn't have some of the high-tech cars and cell phones, when the light turned green, we went.
Right.
But now more and more people are not only stopping at red lights, but they completely disconnect from the world and they're on their phones, which causes great delay. And it happens all the time. And I would imagine that has to contribute to road rage incidents.
Right. And so if you have cognitive distractions behind the wheel or emotional distractions behind the wheel, that can easily lead to aggressive driving because you know you're doing something that's unsafe anyway. Mm-hmm. And then there's a greater temptation to do more things that are unsafe. And what aggressive driving is essentially doing 3 or 4 things that are illegal in terms of traffic safety and the traffic laws. Mm-hmm. And so aggressive driving easily triggers road rage. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is this whole mentality of cars are getting bigger.
Yeah, but for example, Cadillac is no longer making cars. They're only making SUVs.
SUVs.
Yes.
And so the bigger the car becomes, the more of a castle mentality that a person has. And that in other words, I can be 4'2". Mm-hmm. And if I'm on the street, I'm not going to pick a fight with someone. But in my car, I'm 6'8". Mm-hmm. Because I'm in an SUV. And I'm towering over people, and your whole attitude changes psychologically, and you become more aggressive.
And I would also...
You take risks that you wouldn't take in a smaller car.
Not to mention, it appears and D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser said this just this week, that there just seem to be more guns on the streets and in cars, which we could argue that was one of the things that we saw on Tuesday. If you have a big car or if you have a firearm in your vehicle or on your person, you may feel more emboldened to confront someone than if
that gun
just have
had not been in that car on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. That incident wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds simplistic. If a person didn't have a gun in his car in January when he's on 295, he wouldn't have shot the woman 3 times.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else you can do. I mean, what do? You ram the car into someone? You're not going to do that because you care about your car.
One would hope.
But I think that Mayor Bowser has to understand that she's telling the truth about this. And the police chief is telling the truth about this. It is emboldening people.
I've got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Joe from Springdale. Lines are still open. 202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM, Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We're talking about road rage and other anger issues. Let's go back to the phone lines. Joe calling from Springdale. Joe, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Well, I think the biggest problem is just cell phones and people not caring about what goes on around them. Texting while driving and all of these other things that people are doing. And when you're out there driving, you see somebody that's moving slowly, and you go past them and, they're looking down at their phone. We have the means to make all of this technology come true. What they need to do is, if you're behind the wheel and your phone is not hooked up to your car or some type of device other than you holding it in your hand, it should not work.
Thank you so much, Joe. Talk about that real quick, John, about aggressive driving. And do people really save time?
No, you don't save time at all. You're cutting people off, you're tailgating, you're changing lanes without giving signals. And you don't save any time because you're going to get caught by the light. And even if you're on a highway, you probably may gain 2 minutes on your trip. The average commute in the Washington metro area is more than 30 minutes. We have the second longest commutes in the country, especially if you live in the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
And keep this in mind, too, that almost half of all traffic fatalities in this country, at least one of the drivers involved in that fatal crash was doing at least one element of aggressive driving when the crash occurred. 90% of crashes, Harold, are caused by human error. So we're doing things like texting, reading a text, talking on a cell phone. Those are common mistakes, but the most common and most pernicious and most dangerous mistake you can make are those attended to aggressive driving and road rage.
Dr. Cutts, so as it relates to anger of any sort, if you believe that you have a problem with expressions of anger, how do you walk yourself through that? Somebody stepping on your shoes or spilling a drink on you, well, you may let that go, but then if a guest breaks a vase that your mother gave you, then your response may be much more visceral. How do you address that?
Well, if you've identified that you have anger issues, you really should get help. They do have anger management classes. There are therapists and coaches who specialize in that. So I would definitely recommend that you do that. If it doesn't rise to that level, or if you're not able to do that, you have to watch your stress level and your triggers. Everybody should be exercising, taking care of themselves, because that will help to keep the stress down. But, emotional intelligence, you need to be aware of what triggers you, how you react, and then the self-management piece is what do you do with it? And like I said, I really think it's you go into it physically. You mentioned visceral reaction. The way that our brains are wired, you have to override that physical reaction with something physical. So you need to learn to breathe. You need to, on a continual basis, practice some form of relaxation when stressors come up, so that when a larger stressor comes up, you have learned how to manage your reactions.
So what happens, for example, in the workplace? Unfortunately, we have seen people who have been fired and they come back and they kill people.
Yes.
And yet every day, every minute, I'm sure there is someone who has been fired. They've lost their job. And it may be upsetting. It may be emotionally debilitating. It may be something that makes them angry, but they go on about their business. So are we talking about a mental illness thing here, or just the inability to manage difficult situations?
It's a continuum. So it's anywhere from just being impatient and aggressive all the way to something like becoming homicidal. It's a continuum. When it crosses a certain point, if you're going to go on a killing spree because you were fired, well, then we can define it as mental illness, but then it's a little too late. So wherever you are on that continuum, it behooves you to learn to manage your reactions to stress and to have certain boundaries that you don't cross. But if you feel that you have a problem with anger issues, etc., you should really get help because what can happen, Harold, is that we can experience an amygdala hijack, where our amygdala is prigged. It goes past the point of no return. And that's when no matter how much you think and no matter how much you breathe, you can't bring yourself back. So you really want to focus and pay attention to this before you get to that point.
So what about those people who always seem to be calm, zen, for lack of a better term, who their level of anger may amount to a simple grumble?
Well, again, we all have different temperaments, personalities, different set points. There are some people who it is more natural for them to just, let water roll off their back. Things don't ruffle them. But there are also people who have to make a concerted effort to practice having that sort of reaction to what could be stressors for other people. Stress is an interaction between a stimulus and the individual or the organism. So things do not have to stress you. It's how we think about them that creates the stress in our bodies. So you need to look at your cognitions, your thoughts around things that happen. For example, I got to get to work, on time, or, I got to get past this person. There's not enough gas. There's not enough this, all that scarcity stuff. Those are your thoughts. And then the physical reaction, again, you need to be able to learn to practice breathing, centering, putting your body in a posture that signals that you are relaxed and that you're not threatened in order to bring your mind and your emotions into alignment to stay calm and centered and not act out.
John, if you're on the road and you encounter someone who is road raging and who is following you, for example, harassing you, how do you address that if you're in a moving vehicle? Kind of run down some of the things that you should do.
First thing, don't engage the person. Don't make eye contact with the person. But if the person is following you, then look for the nearest exit ramp or find a fire station or police department and pull into it, or even a service station, somewhere where there are eyes watching that other person, and the person is less likely to do something destructive. But you have to, especially if you are a woman, do everything in your power to protect yourself and find a safe haven, even if it means pulling off at the nearest exit.
If you are driving, can you call
911?
Yeah, because that's the other thing. You know, for example, I have a long commute. Mm-hmm. My commute is 50 miles. Depending on where I am, what won't that determine what police department I connect with?
I had an incident years ago. I was driving up the highway from Huntsville, Alabama, where you used to work, up toward Louisville. And a truck driver started throwing bottles at me. A tractor-trailer driver. So I had done something to anger him. So I extricated myself out of that situation and drove 95 miles an hour because I knew the Kentucky State Police were going to pull me over.
Wow.
And they did.
Wow.
And that's the only way I could think that I could have survived the situation. I knew those truck drivers were trying to run me off the road.
Oh, my God.
So I drove as fast as I could with the idea of attracting the state police. And they turned their lights on, turned their sirens on, and pulled me over to give me a ticket for speeding. And I said to the state trooper, "You saved my life." So what are you talking about? I said, "Truck drivers are trying to kill me." He said, "That's the craziest story I've ever heard in my life." And the 3 truck drivers came by in 3 separate tractor-trailer rigs doing obscene gestures. And said, "Those are the guys I'm talking about." Mm-hmm. But I had to run.
Did they let you out of the ticket?
I never got the ticket.
You know, I was going to say, that's good. That's really good. And and depending on... And certainly, depending on how long ago this was, a black man in Kentucky, that may with the state police, that may have been yet another issue.
That was 30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that's true too.
But he took my word because they were so angry, and what helped that situation was that Ricky Skaggs, who's a country western singer, his name is not used as much. His daughter had been shot in Kentucky by a truck driver who got angry at something the mother had done, shot through the car.
Yeah.
So these incidents have been going on since time immemorial. And we have to understand, Harold, that at some point, like the person who was shot on Tuesday, there's nothing that we can do in our power to stop it. Yeah. That's why it's so frightening. We go back to the way you started this program.
Got to be careful.
We got to be careful.
I want to thank both of you for participating in this conversation. Hopefully, we've helped somebody really think about their driving back and forth to work or wherever they are, and not to mention how you deal with anger at home, at work, with the people you love, or even some of the people you don't. And whatever you do, don't talk to your pastor or your father on the phone if you have road rage in the car. Listen, you two have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Dr. Nicole Cutts and John Thompson. That is the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141 for this Friday, August 2nd. For News Director Renee Nash, reporter Saylor Thomas, Millette Green, Vermonte Bryant, producer Candace Atkins, and engineer Bobby Adams, as well as Iron Waller. I'm Harold Fisher. You can tweet us using the hashtag WHURFM. Now stay tuned for The Connection. Good night and have a wonderful and safe weekend.